Dr. Iona Hine. I am the Communications and Programme Manager within Cambridge Interfaith Programme, based in the Faculty of Divinity at the University of Cambridge. And I'm also one of the 3 conveners for this year's academic summer school in Interfaith Relations. I will say a bit more about myself, but I think first we'll just sort of continue round. So I'll invite Esra next, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Professor Esra Ozyurek. I'm the Sultan Qaboos Professor in Abrahamic Faiths and Shared Values. And I'm also the Academic Director of Cambridge Interfaith Program. And I'm one of the conveners of this summer school. Safet, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Safet, HadziMuhamedovic. I'm an anthropologist of religion. I teach various courses on religion, interfaith relations, and conflict in the Faculty of Divinity at the University of Cambridge. I also co-convene with Esra and Iona this academic summer school in interfaith relations, and I work closely with the Cambridge Interfaith Program. So there's a lot of there are lots of people, academics in our faculty who are interested in interfaith relations and from very different perspectives, as you will see in the summer. And that's kind of the richness really that kind of we bring. I think this interdisciplinarity is quite interesting. That's what we offer.
That's quite a useful note for me to invite you to each to say a little bit about what in particular. So we, all 3 of us, are conveners, and that means that to varying extents we'll be sort of present throughout the 2 weeks of the summer school. But equally, we each have our particular areas of expertise and things that we're intending to do in 1 or 2 sessions during the summer school, in the same way that you will find we're recording introductions with other people who are teaching about what they're going to be teaching and what they're excited about doing with the summer school participants this year. So if we go back to you, Safet, if you're happy to just speak briefly about the kinds of questions that you're hoping to open up with people.
Sure. So I mentioned that I'm an anthropologist, and so one of the defining features of how we approach questions about life in general, and in this specific case about religion, and kind of the case of people who are teaching in the Faculty of Divinity, anthropologists approaching through long-term studies. And I spent several years, for example, in Southeast Bosnia, attempting to understand how people, after a war, after genocide, after ethnic cleansing, people of different religions, how they manage to live together, how they attempt to restore certain rituals, forms of community, communal bonds. So I was interested at once in the kind of the politics of the state, nationalism, and these kind of nationalist programs that attempted to destroy and erase religious plurality in these bonds, but also how people responded to this politics from within the tradition, from within their community, these bonds that they created over really a long historical period. And these surprising modes of resistance are really what I find fascinating. And partly, I conducted this research visually. And I'm very interested in non-textual approaches to research. And this is what I'll be speaking about partly at our summer school, really the visual approaches to interfaith research. And then it will segue into a workshop where all of the participants will contribute some of their own visual research. So you will do a stint of sort of visual anthropological research, and then we will get to understand really how you think about religion, how you think about interfaith relations from within your own landscapes, your own cities, towns, and also really to understand visual approaches. And I'm not simply thinking about photography, but also film, cognitive mapping, drawing, all of these different visual approaches, what their potential is to understand lived religion, why they might be valuable, sometimes more so than textual forms of representation, but also, of course, to understand what are some of the hidden pitfalls, the dangers in representation. So it will be an interactive workshop that I will moderate, sort of introduced with a bit of lecture on some of the histories of visual anthropology. And I look forward to seeing you in the summer.
Thank you, Safet. Esra, can I put the same question to you now?
Sure. I will, I'm also an anthropologist like Safet, but I'm a political anthropologist, and in interfaith relations, I am interested in the history of it, politics of it, how it is conceptualized as an answer to end conflict, to manage difficult relationships. So I will talk a little bit about the history of it and how different faiths are imagined when they are brought together. So it will be a bit of a critical perspective on how interfaith relations are practiced today.
Thank you. And I guess that makes it my turn. So my academic expertise lies partly in biblical studies. So I'm a graduate of the Divinity faculty in Cambridge, but I did my PhD at Sheffield University, where there is an institute for interdisciplinary biblical studies, which means that you can get all kinds of people with all kinds of research backgrounds working in that space. And in practice, my interests stretch sort of across translation and linguistic approaches to the Bible, and then into kind of archival and historical information around religious texts and religious experience. And for the summer school, I'm going to be running an interactive session around archives and archiving, but I'll actually be starting by looking at some examples from the past and some of the sort of subtle signs and traces of interaction between faiths at the level of individuals and communities. And I hope that part of what I will get everyone else doing is looking for sort of subtle traces and the kinds of things that might testify to interaction between faiths that we often ignore or don't necessarily conceptualize in that way. So that's the kind of stuff that I shall be bringing along to the session that I'm leading on and moderating on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is sufficient. There is no requirements. Last year, we had people coming from lots of different backgrounds, with different interests, and, we found ways to engage all of them. So being interested is the only requirement.
And of course, we're very happy to send you some introductory texts. Certainly, we would sort of register you on a platform where you could access different kinds of texts to prepare, and there will be, simple introductory texts, and also there are other, as I'm concerned with non-textual sources as well. There will be some exhibitions. For example, I curated an exhibition on shared sacred landscapes last year, so we'll send you some links, some podcasts as well, so you can enjoy that in your free time. But there is no requirement, as Esra noted.
We know that there will be a very diverse group of people, and we enjoy having a very diverse group of people, and that means that everybody, of course, will bring some kind of nugget of expertise, even if you don't yet know you've got it, but those will be different and they will complement each other, so that there's no kind of baseline expectation. We will, as Safet alludes to, will make sure that in advance of the summer school you have access to the reading materials, and if you want to get a flavour within the kind of process for applying for the bursary, there are some examples of the different kinds of things. So Safet has mentioned the podcast. One of the activities we suggested for people applying for the bursary to kind of get their heads around what might be involved in the summer school is to listen to a couple of the podcasts and then just do a sort of simple written reflection on what you've heard and what you thought of it. while it's not the same stuff that we'll be doing necessarily within the summer school, it should be an indication of the kind of the level of challenge and the breadth of the different kinds of thing that we'll be doing together. So yeah, basically, don't worry about it. And if you want to reassure yourself more than me just saying don't worry about it, or all of us saying don't worry about it, then you could take a look at those kinds of resources and also look forward to getting the welcome pack where we give you access to some reading materials so that you can start reading it. And you will find, because of the breadth of the topics that we cover, there will be points where you feel more familiar with the stuff and points where it feels more strange, and that's just normal. It's part of any kind of interdisciplinary summer school, I would say, that you kind of come across some familiar stuff. We do have a session which is Dr. Andrew Davison, who is Starbridge Associate Professor. He has a PhD in, I think if I'm right, it's biochemistry, as well as one in theology. So you wouldn't be alone as someone with that kind of hybrid science and humanities kind of background.
What I wanted to say is that, so you get all of these experts from asking very different questions, about life in the universe and about post-conflict landscapes and this and that. But a large part of kind of the learning process in this summer school is really also communication between the participants and what you bring. And this kind of experience and your questions and your understanding, all of this, it really makes a lot of difference that you are kind of in it fully and that you participate and you kind of also learn from the other participants, I would say.
For the benefit of people who aren't here, and while we might share this sort of some extracts from this discussion, obviously we're approaching the deadline for the early bird discount, so it is very definitely worth getting your application in by the end of April, because it makes a difference to how much you would pay. But we also do have the bursary scheme, and we very much encourage anybody where the standard fee would be impossible or feel impossible to go ahead and apply for the bursary and identify yourself as somebody who needs that support. There's no kind of barrier to that. And while we are asking people to complete a small written task when applying for the bursary, that's mostly to test yourselves. It's not because we're really testing you, but we want to know that people applying for the bursary have thought about what they're applying for, and check their own kind of readiness to do the tasks. And therefore, as I kind of already said, it's good for other people to do them as well, to take a look at that sort of breadth of stuff. And overall, the deadline for applying is the 20th of June. That's unless we have so many applications that we've run out of places, because we do cap the overall number of participants, because we want to make sure that we get to know you and that you have good discussion, and some of that is by making sure that we don't get too big.
Based on the previous experiences with the summer school, some of our participants decide that Cambridge is the place where they want to continue their studies, and whether it is Cambridge or somewhere else or whatever else you do later in your life, but there's this network of support that you have, and you also become part of the alumni group led by Iona. Iona, do you want to mention something?
So I think that's a helpful kind of context. So a couple of things really. So this year we have built into the summer school programme an information session about further study, and that's simply because we realised that was something people wanted. But equally, I do carry out one-to-one conversations with people. That's an opt-in thing, so people can choose to have that, and that can be that we talk about opportunities for further study or what you'd like to do next as a result of having joined in the summer school. So it's a kind of open conversation, and as Safet says, it might be that we're actually sort of recommending or suggesting to you something completely different from further stuff with us, but we're very happy to take that kind of interest in what your next steps might be. And in terms of alumni communications, I do my best to think kind of at least once every couple of months, now what is there that I should be letting people know about, because we perhaps increasingly are active online with other things, and we're able to offer those opportunities for alumni to join us and take part in.
Well, I mean, it was a lot of fun last year. People, you know, it's like a really diverse group, people coming from all around the world. I hope we'll have a similar experience, and I hope you join us and, you know, give us a chance to learn from you as well.